Hello, and thank you for listening to this episode of the Billy Newman Photo Podcast. My name is Billy Newman. I'm here with Marina Hansen. How you doing, Marina?
I'm doing well, thanks, Billy.
Thanks for doing a little podcast with me. So today we had a couple photos that we're going to talk about, and a couple of photo things that we've been up to for the last week or so, which has been kind of fun. It's finally March now. I think it was March 1st today, and we just saw a couple of flowers blooming outside. What were they called? Crocuses, did you say? Or what was it
I
called?
think so.
I don't really know that type of flower or what kind of flowers they are
I think that's what I'd heard.
in this
What they
early
call it?
time of year. Yeah, but they must have bloomed just in the last couple of days. I mean, it seemed like even last weekend, right, when we were up in the north end of the Willamette Valley, there was snow on the ground.
There was, yeah.
So it seems
I,
like a bad time to bloom.
yeah.
But now it seems kind of nice. Like today, it was a little bit lighter out.
It was. It was a little lighter. It was a little bit warmer.
I liked that. It was cool. What, like 11 more days till daylight savings time,
Yeah.
which is great news.
That's
That
nice.
makes a big difference. Where, like obviously it feels like the season really swings into place. Then you're like, hey,
Mhm.
whoa, it's already so much brighter. This is great. But then I think really coming up to the equinox or like into
Mhm.
springtime, I think that's gonna make a big that's like the big difference. It feels like it's really coming out of winter and you're coming into April and it's kind of uphill or downhill from there. It's easier at that point.
Yeah.
It's gonna be nicer weather. So I'm excited for that and some of the stuff that we get to do going outside.
Me too. I'm really looking forward to our travel that'll be attached to the better weather.
But yeah, we got to set up some travel to do. Well, we got to set up a couple trips and a couple of vacation days to get out. And we got
Oh,
to
yeah.
do
Right.
some photo trips to a couple places. But we should do that even maybe this month. I mean, it's March.
I think so.
Should come out by the end of March.
I think in the next week or two, it's gonna be pretty good for that.
Yeah, historically, I guess we have gone out during a time around this time of year. Like I
I
remember
think so.
seeing photos from, I think it was like March 8th or so. We did one trip up to the Cougar Reservoir area.
Right.
We did a trip up there, yeah. That time of year, I think in like the end of March one year, we did that trip over to the coast,
Oh, yeah. I
and we
remember
went down.
that.
Yeah, I remember that. Staying in the Camry while it rained on us.
Yeah.
Oh man, but we got a couple cool little pictures. I had a nice
We
time over
did.
there. I think we did some fun stuff. But I remember that was a pretty rainy March trip that we did together. But it was pretty fun though.
That was fun. I remember it being pretty wet though.
Oh yeah, it was way too
Pretty
wet back
rainy.
then. So for today, we're talking about a time where we actually were pretty dry. In November, I think it was 2012, when we were on our trip driving south on 395, we stopped in Lone Pine, California. I think it was our first time there. Maybe now I think we should have stayed there for longer. We went to Rexburg, that town below, for 2 days to stay in a
Oh,
hotel and
yeah.
recoup. And then we went back up to Lone Pine because we thought it was so cool. We thought we shouldn't leave
Yeah.
that zone yet before we camped there for a while. And I'm really glad that we did. It
Me too.
had been unknown to me before that. Did you know about it as we were driving up to it?
I had known some of the historical things about it, I guess. Like I
But
knew
you knew it was there? Or I knew about the Sierra Nevadas. I didn't know that there was this spot or the Alabama Hills specifically and that it was like a destination.
I didn't know what it was called. I knew that it was in California and I knew that it was where some like old TV shows had been shot.
Yeah, TV shows and some movies. We saw like a clip from Iron Man,
Oh,
the beginning
yeah.
sequence where they pretend to be in Afghanistan. That was all shot in this zone. It's a pretty arid spot that has some dramatic mountains in the background.
Mhm.
Now it's made world famous by Mac OS Sierra, as we see backgrounds of MacBooks all over the
Oh,
country
yeah.
turn to the spot that we were camping at back in 2012. It was November. I think it was right up to and then past Thanksgiving Day, which is pretty
Was.
cool. Which was the end of November. So I remember the sun setting like around like 3:30 out there. It was like 3:30, 4 o'clock. It was going behind the big line of mountains over to the western horizon, and it was a really cool spot though. That area is really arid. But we woke up early one morning. We drove the Camry up to a spot and kind of looked out over a lot of the Alabama hills, which are kind of like a rocky. What is it? I don't know. Is it kind of like a mud? It seems like a little like clumps of mud. The geography or the geology of the rocks of Alabama hills.
Oh,
How would
yeah.
you describe that? It's different than rocks.
It
It's
is.
not basalt columns that you would see out in Eastern Oregon or like what was like a caldera, like from volcanic activity, but it's like it looks like little mud piles that are stacked up. It's kind of an
It
interesting way that
does.
those mountains are put together in contrast with that line of the eastern Sierra Nevadas. I think you see Mount Whitney in there. I don't know what that other tall peak is, but I think that was one that's often named too. But it's cool. I like that spot a lot. It was cool. That was one of my favorite pictures from that trip. So I had re-edited this after I found a higher quality version of the photo. I think I tried to post it maybe even, I don't know, maybe 2 months ago or so. And for whatever reason, the picture that went out got crunched. It was like what, like just the thumbnail of the picture
Oh,
made it through as the file that was sent out. So it was really grainy and bad. It was too bad. It was one of my favorite pictures too. So I was like, oh, that's stinks. So yeah, I sent that picture out, and it was cool. I also tried to do a promoted piece of it on Facebook. I've been trying that out a little bit, where I want to try and see what happens if you put money behind an image that you're working with. And now I finally, like I was telling you about earlier, I connected my Instagram account with my Facebook page, and that allows you to set advertisements on Instagram now.
oh yeah, you were telling me about that.
I think we were talking about it a little bit maybe on the last podcast, trying that out with a couple of things. And you were saying you still don't see
Yeah,
sponsored posts.
I don't get sponsored posts in my Instagram feed still.
Wow, yeah, I see
I
every
don't know
10.
why.
Must not rolling
I'm
out
glad,
for Marina.
I guess.
Uh, yeah, it's every 10 posts now. It seems
Wow.
like is a piece of sponsored content. So I tried that out. I think yesterday I started it when I posted this one, and it was like kind of a collection of different things that would maybe make sense for a photo like this. But it's got some interaction. It's been cool. It seems like it's shown up in front of a handful of people through the promotion. It's kind of interesting to try and figure out how it works. That seems like a lot of the accounts are maybe not as targeted as they should be.
Mhm.
Like they seem like kind of strange accounts sometimes. So it's cool. It was a cool thing to try. We're probably gonna do it a bunch more, but we should probably fine tune our skills with Facebook marketing over a little while.
Yeah, I think it's cool that you're starting to learn about it though.
Starting to learn about it. Gosh, I'm way behind on it, but it's neat. I like kind of working with some of the marketing tools. Oh man, I always had such the biggest grudge against paying for Facebook to do anything,
Mhm.
and it was a rough pill for me to swallow. So this other photograph is really cool because you posted this one. I'm really glad that you had a bunch of images going up on on your Twitter feed and then on Facebook, I think too.
Yeah.
It was cool getting to see a bunch of those photographs, and I'm really glad you've been putting them up. This was a cool one. I liked this one. I took this photograph of you while we were hiking. What was it? Was this on the way to the waterfall that we went to?
Yeah, this was on the PPY trail.
You pronounce it so well. I was scared to say
It's tricky to pronounce.
it. And
And yeah, you go through this little bamboo forest, and
a
then
really pretty bamboo forest.
yeah, it was very cool. And then I think it ends at Waimoku Falls.
Waimoku Falls. What cool names.
Yeah, pretty
I
cool.
really liked that
Really
bamboo
beautiful
forest
spot.
we were in. I remember there's a couple other fun photos from there. Maybe that's why I passed over this one. Is it was like this one, the next one of you in the bamboo, and the next one of you
Yeah.
in the bamboo. Maybe we used the other three, but I'd almost kind of passed over this one. But this is a really pretty picture. I like this one of you walking up sort of some steps of a trail that lead out around a corner in
Yeah.
a Hawaiian rainforest. Well, you got a cool backpack on?
Pretty cool backpack.
So cool, Marina.
I like this photo a lot. This is a film photo that you took, right?
Yeah, it was a film photo on the F4. That's like all I was shooting with last year. I didn't have the D3 yet, and
Right.
I think my I think my D2H had been broken for like a year and a half, 2 years or so. So yeah, I'd been pretty set on doing film only for that time, which was really cool. I like how this looks a lot, and I want to try and shoot a good bit more film. But I thought this was really fun, getting a handful of these photos, and I like that you were posting a bunch of the pictures that I had of you, like this other one. We had this other one like on a little moped, little
Yeah.
Marina on a moped,
That was so fun.
riding around Hawaii. It was a fun time. So let's see. Yeah, I wanted to talk. Let's see. What other photos did you have come out? Did you have any cool ones?
I had another film photo, but it was a film photo that I took. It was a long exposure film photo from one of the waterfalls at the Silver Falls Park.
Oh yeah, the state park.
Yeah.
I want to go back up there more. I've only been there, well, maybe 2 times with you.
Yeah, I think that this was the second time that we'd gone together.
And that was a while ago now. Yeah, so we
It
got to go
was, yeah, we've
back
got to go back.
in the springtime. We should do
Yeah, we should. It was
it.
really fun. We went during the day. You can't you can't quite tell. You might be able to tell after I tell you. So this is a long exposure picture, but we went during the day. So I used that big stopper,
Oh
the
yeah.
Lee
Hmm.
filter, and there was actually a little girl in a bright orange swimsuit who was walking around in front of the camera while I was taking the picture.
Ah.
And you can't tell though that she's there. I think down in the corner where it's not even really in the focus of the picture, I think you can
Oh
kind of
yeah.
make out like maybe a little bit of a shadow that's a little bit of a warm tone.
That's
And that's
interesting.
like a little
I remember that little girl just like
little
running
6-year-old girl who's
running
running back
around
and forth.
through it. Yeah. That's a really cool thing though. That's a nice thing about those long exposures where people
Yeah,
kind of drift around and
I was really glad that it
yeah.
worked out. It's a kind of cool shot.
I think it's pretty cool. I was looking at a few of the tutorials that people have for their different landscape, or I think primarily Iceland waterfall photos.
Oh yeah.
That like tour of photographers from wherever in America. They
Mhm.
all fly into Iceland. They all walk on a pretty tight trail that just does
Mhm.
a little loop around some set of waterfalls. Everybody takes the picture. Everybody takes off to the next zone. Sometimes it
Yeah.
seems like, but I was looking at this photo or this like editing session, and a lot of landscape editing right now is just deleting people from beaches.
Oh yeah.
That's like, yeah, I was looking at this one where
I've
it was interesting. I don't want to do it this way. It was like the photographer was up kind of on a bluff at a beach on the coast. It looked nice, just kind of a
mhm.
pretty little cove of a beach. A lot of people on the beach, right? Kind of scattered with their blankets and stuff and little beach barbecue or not barbecuing, but little beach day out stuff.
Yeah.
And then the photographer had the two people, like a couple in love, walk on the beach together, holding hands or something like that.
Sure.
And then he had to delete all of the
Right.
people in the scene, like everywhere, right? It was like a way too busy beach to have done this thing, I would think, at least coming from beaches where it seems like there is no one. It's like, that's like the busiest beach I've seen. It's busier than like what we saw in Hawaii sometimes. And so it was just weird watching him like, oh, you just have to go through and delete like a mile of coastline of people that are sort of floating around. And it seems
uh,
like you'd have to replace almost most of the image, but that strips away all this other extraneous stuff of people so that it kind of focuses in on the
yeah,
the
the
two
couple.
the two people moving around. But it was a weird way. It's
That
like, God, what a
sounds
strange way to put together landscapes.
yeah. I guess if I guess if it has to be at that location and that and or that's the only location where you can get that kind of shot. Like if that's the only beach you can get to that has a pretty scene and you have to go and there are just going to be a ton of people no matter what, then I guess I get it. But that seems like so much work
It
for
seems like retouching is
something.
big, or that's just where.
Yeah. I guess that's what you get a team of people to work for you for when you're a pro photographer.
Yeah,
Just to
maybe so. Yeah.
retouch all these little people walking around the beach.
People are into that. That they do a lot of retouching, a lot of digital art stuff on top of their photos. I think
I've
that's a layer of that fine art photography that we see sometimes, and it says this doesn't look
right.
right.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like I take photos, and these don't look like photos. Do you
Yeah,
know
it
what I mean? Like,
looks you can feel almost that there's something artificial
yeah,
in the way that it's
I don't know
put
what they're
together.
doing or what they're using,
Yeah.
but yeah, I take photos. I've seen photos, and I don't know what they're doing to get that, but it doesn't seem to be what cameras do a lot
Mhm.
of the time. I swear, it seems like.
I think it's true. I think you can tell with photos. The
Sometimes,
ones that
yeah.
are the ones that seem to have had a lot done to them, at least.
Yeah, I think sometimes, yeah. Well, yeah, and definitely maybe in this case where you're replacing 80% of the texture of the beach on the
Mhm.
sand, and replacing little people in hoodies to
Yeah.
just nice solitude on a beach. But it's kind of strange how much digital manipulation is done on some of those things. It's been a
It's
conversation for what, like 30 years now or something like that. I think it was the
mhm.
early 80s. That's when the first time I think there was a National Geographic upset when there was some digital manipulation used to move the pyramids a little closer together so that they'd fit on the vertical frame of the
Oh, for the
magazine.
shot. Mhm.
Yeah, and I don't even know really what happened. I didn't see the original or after. I
Mhm.
thought you could kind of do the same thing with compression of the lens.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't know why it wouldn't have just been shot differently.
Yeah, I'm not really sure
Because you
what.
could shoot it to fit what that layout would be. But it was just like an older photo or a photo that wasn't planned for that.
I don't really know. There could have been. I mean, it was like 83 or something. Maybe there
Mhm.
wasn't the thinking that they could back up further. And like
Oh,
what we're
mhm.
talking about, digitally replace the foreground or something. I'm not
Oh,
sure.
sure. Yeah.
I'm not sure what the thinking was, but I remember that was an issue. I had not really ever read much about it, but in college, in some sort of goofy way, by
It was
someone who
brought up.
doesn't know a thing about it, told us that. One of those like art history moments where they say blah 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 about digital photography in the past. There
Yeah.
used to be a thing that was printed in the early 80s that said like this photo has been digitally manipulated and had to be printed on the
Ah,
back
weird.
so that it couldn't be trusted as photographic evidence
Mhm.
because it'd be too convincing. There's a photo of it. Oh, it says that
No, but it's a manipulated
this
photo.
photo's been manipulated, huh? And yeah, it's just apparently with anything. I don't, but it's weird how much that's changed over time. Where like the old ones, we see this rule just kind of come and gone now. Where there's a lot of the like live event posters that we walked by at this, or there's like a I think the country fair that we've been going to for years, they have all
Yeah.
their old posters out for the years past for the last 30 years.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Many of them from the 90s in big print across the top said no photography or video.
That's right.
And
A
you
lot of
think,
them up until really not that long ago. I
right?
think it
Yeah.
was.
And then it's just like, screw you.
Nope.
Yeah, every single person has an HD camera on them and they're going to
Yeah.
record and do with it what they want. But yeah, it's very strange how fast that kind of idea, that sort of norm has changed.
That is interesting.
It'd be tough if I were a professional like now with something and then all of a sudden that just became like, oh no, everyone in society doesn't agree with that
Mhm.
anymore and we're not going to do it that way. It'd be so strange. We're probably going to live
Right.
through a lot of those. But it seems like we probably age with those times. I mean, I
Yeah.
guess way back I accepted it just fine because I didn't really have a bunch of cameras to bring in. I
Yeah.
wasn't too worried about it, but there's still like little things. I remember I went to a concert one time with the camera that I had, and they were just, I wasn't really planning on using it. They said you could bring in cameras, but they couldn't. I couldn't bring in
Oh,
my camera because the
the
lens
lens
came off.
separated.
Yeah,
Yeah. I think that there was some musical festival thing that we went to a few years ago, and there was a girl who had a film camera that she brought, and they didn't let her take it in because the lens came off.
there you go.
Yep.
Too
She had to
pro.
walk back. She had to walk back like a half mile.
Oh, that's so goofy. Yeah, it's just like, it's what a silly. It's just an arbitrary rule
Mhm.
to select like professional from amateur.
Yeah,
But
I think that's what it is because I think that there's like an event photographer that they have there,
yeah, it is
and they
goofy
only
though.
allow.
There's been other times where it's worked an opposite, where pro photographers have showed up at locations with mirrorless cameras and all
Mhm.
their equipment, even though it's a lens that comes off. But they said that they couldn't offer the professional photography services to that person because they didn't have pro equipment, or
Oh,
they weren't
yeah.
a photographer because they
Because
didn't
it
have a
was
DSLR
mhm.
for whatever reason. Yeah. I think there was some feature at a national park where you could get a guide. If you were a photographer, you could like register with a
Oh,
guide to get you to a spot to do a photography assignment. It was kind of a thing that is
right.
set up. It's
Yeah.
hard to get. It's not really like just we call up and say, give us that. But it's like kind of an expensive thing, I guess you buy or get from a service if you're a photographer chartered to do a project at a thing.
Mhm.
And they said, oh no, we can't give you that because you have a mirrorless camera body.
Yeah.
Silly idea.
It is silly. I think that I had heard about that too.
Yeah, there's little goofy things like that that'll be probably some type of growing pain over the next 10 or 15 years, which is silly. It should have been wiped out pretty quickly. It seems like it has. I mean, a lot of the assumptions that we had back in 2005 have definitely come to fruition now, where we see like internet and media stuff is not a fad kind of
Mhm.
thing, or like that this is sort of the way things are going. I remember even in college when I was doing new media communications, and people would look at me like, "But what is that?" Or like, what does that mean? It's like, well, it's like everything, like everything that Facebook is engineered around, and or every kind of piece that it seems like is the 21st century
Yeah.
communication is what it is, and they'd be like, is that important? Or maybe, yeah, I think it's, or like it's gonna
Do
be
people
something.
use that though?
So it's funny to see how much it's shifting faster and faster into the direction of like, oh yeah, so that is like that
Yeah,
is
so
that is what's
everyone
going
uses
to
this.
work.
Yeah.
Everyone's going to use this at least for some amount of time, and then maybe something else. But it seems like it'll be an innovation on top of it. Like we stop buying cable TV. We probably would even still to this day if we didn't have an alternative that replaced it or that gave us something that was a better option. Like
Mhm.
a high speed network that had a lot of media on it that we could access anytime, however we want to.
Yeah.
So that replaces the cable idea. So I don't know if we'd just get out of social media at this point. Like for a while, I thought maybe social, or at least like a handful of sites, people would kind of start to resist social media
Hmm.
as it wasn't like start to leave or get off it, or like maybe the next generation wouldn't be as into it, or they'd be into more privacy. And they've kind of shown that a little bit with messaging, but it seems like it'll be something else that replaces how we use social media right now versus that people just kind of dwindle off of it.
Yeah, I think so. I don't think people are gonna want to stop being as connected as we're able
Yeah.
to be now.
And as for as internationally ingrained as these things are, it's bigger
Hmm.
than like ABC, which is a national
Sure. Yeah.
network. But Facebook is like,
Everywhere.
yeah, like a billion people. It's like in all sorts of different parts of the world. So that's a really interesting thing where maybe it could die out here, but it would be everywhere else, and they would have to come back here sooner or
Hmm.
later. The product, it would still like live on as a company. Kind of weird to think about. But thanks for talking about all these photo things with me.
Thanks for having me on your show, Billy.
Thanks for talking about little film photos we used to take. What was it, like a year ago, maybe 2 years ago for these photos?
Yeah, a year ago.
I just took a couple of film photos tonight. I brought that for on that little walk that we did.
Oh yeah,
I took
I'm
a
glad
couple
that
little
you did.
pictures. I gotta take some little flower pictures too now that we got a couple
Oh
little
yeah,
blooms
now that
going.
there's some out, I think that's pretty cool.
Gotta do some little springtime stuff, Marina.
Yeah. I
It's
was
March.
just I was just looking through some other film photos that I took around that same time as that waterfall picture that I posted. And there's one from campus with a bunch of fresh little purple and pink flowers.
Ah, that's cool.
Gotta take some new ones now
Yeah.
that they're out.
Yeah, I think I remember a lot of my favorite photos seem to come around
Yeah,
the
these
end of
next few
March
weeks.
and April. Yeah. So I'm hoping that we get some cool stuff to shoot.
I think it'll be cool.
We gotta make some cool opportunities. We gotta get out to somewhere different.
Yeah, definitely.
Do something
We
that seems
should
like we're
we should figure
interested.
out our March trip.
We really should. I'd like to think about that a bit. So thanks, Rena. Thanks for hanging out and talk with me about some photo stuff, some little things that we're putting up online. It's cool.
Thanks so much for having me on your show, Billy.
I appreciate you doing these little podcast records with me, hanging out in the studio.
I like it. It's fun.
Sitting at end to end at our desk, hanging out and talking is fun.
Thanks for having cool microphones.
It's so fun. We seem so official. It
Feels
looks
pretty
official.
official.
I don't know how it sounds, but it looks official, which is pretty cool. So thanks a lot, Marina. So on behalf of Marina Hansen, my name is Billy Newman, and thank you very much for listening to this episode of the Billy Newman Photo Podcast.